If you're watching this right now, I need you to recognize something before we continue any further. What I'm about to guide you through is not guesswork. It is not evaluation of something that could occur someday. It is unfolding right now as we speak. And if you care about what comes next in this country, if you care about whether the institutions that have held this democracy together for 2.5 centuries can endure what's approaching, you need to stay with me for this entire explanation. Hit subscribe right now. Turn on notifications because the next 72 hours are going to decide things that cannot be reversed. Let's go. At 5:07 p.m. Eastern Time today, January 13, 2026, something appeared on a federal court docket that legal scholars have discussed for decades, but have never actually observed. A sitting federal judge formally issued a criminal referral connected to the conduct of a former president of the United States and sent it directly to Congress. Not leaked, not hinted to a reporter off the record, formally filed, time-stamped, signed, entered into the official record of the United States federal court system. This is not a drill. Within minutes, and I mean minutes, phones across Capitol Hill started ringing simultaneously. Committee aides were called into emergency briefings. Senior leadership offices began quietly calculating the numbers, assessing procedural options, retrieving contingency documents that had been drafted months ago and stored away for a moment exactly like this one. Here's what you need to understand about why this matters more than anything else happening in the world right now. A federal judge, a lifetime appointed member of the judicial branch, has formally stated that the standard tools available to the courts have been exhausted, that traditional enforcement mechanisms are no longer sufficient, that constitutional remedies beyond the judiciary are now required. Read that again. A federal judge just told Congress, "I cannot manage this anymore. You need to act." Now, let me guide you through what's actually in this filing because the details matter immensely. The judge overseeing this case has spent months navigating a dispute that federal courts were never structured to handle at this scale. The filing documents multiple instances where court orders were challenged, pressured, or openly ignored. Each time the court reacted the way courts are expected to react, incrementally, deliberately. Clarifications were provided. Boundaries were reiterated. Penalties were applied. And according to the court's own documented record, the conduct did not cease. That's the key. This referral is not about a single episode. It's not about one difficult day or one regrettable statement. The judge is stating clearly in writing under oath that the pattern itself is the issue. Violation, warning, violation, penalty, violation, escalation, violation, over and over and over again. The materials sent to Congress tonight are extensive. Hearing transcripts, prior written orders, records of communications. The court had explicitly restricted sworn declarations from legal professionals explaining why this situation has departed so dramatically from anything in historical precedent. This isn't built on unnamed sources. This isn't media speculation. Every component is presented as evidence already reviewed under oath in a court of law. The judge is not requesting Congress to begin an investigation from nothing. She's informing them the investigation has already been completed. The threshold has already been exceeded. The only question now is what Congress plans to do about it. Here's where I need you to truly concentrate because this is the part that shapes everything that follows. Federal judges function within strict boundaries. By design, their role is to interpret law and enforce procedure. They do not initiate political consequences. They do not inject themselves into electoral processes. They remain in their lane. A formal referral to Congress is therefore not symbolic phrasing. It is not a recommendation. It is not guidance. It is a recognition that the balance between branches of government has reached a breaking point. The filing explicitly cautions, and I'm going to quote the key language here, that failing to respond would echo far beyond this single case. It would effectively signal that judicial authority may be dismissed without consequence when the individual involved holds sufficient power. Let that settle in for a moment. A federal judge is telling Congress, if you don't address this, you're establishing that courts can be disregarded. You are establishing that power overrides law. You are establishing that the rules don't apply to everyone equally. That's not partisan framing. That's a judge stating the foundation of the system is fracturing. If what I'm outlining sounds serious to you, and it should, I need you to share this video right now. Drop it in your group chat. Post it on your timeline because what happens in the next few days depends on whether people are paying attention or not. Like this video. Comment below. Tell me what you're noticing in your community. And stay with me because we're just getting started. Almost immediately after the filing became public, senior lawmakers confirmed they had received it. By early evening, multiple congressional offices acknowledged that impeachment-related frameworks drafted months earlier were being examined again, not created, examined under an accelerated schedule. These were not quickly assembled reactions to tonight's news. They were pre-existing contingency documents that had been quietly prepared for exactly this scenario. Set aside waiting. Staff members with direct knowledge of the process are telling us that leadership had long expected something like this, even if the pace at which it arrived caught nearly everyone by surprise. What has shifted, and this is critical, is political insulation. When action follows a formal judicial referral, lawmakers can defend their decisions as institutional duty rather than partisan conflict. They can point to a judge's sworn findings. They can say, "I didn't pick this fight. The court delivered it to me." That alters the equation entirely. By late tonight, several representatives from competitive districts, some of whom supported this former president during earlier controversies, are reconsidering their positions. Their private discussions are centered on a single question. How do I justify disregarding a federal judge's findings to constituents who are weary from years of instability? For these members, the political equation has reversed. Doing nothing now carries dangers as substantial as taking action. And here's where everything becomes even more intricate. The evidence forwarded to Congress was not sent there alone. Sources familiar with the process confirm that the same materials have also been delivered to federal prosecutors. The judicial documentation detailing alleged obstruction, interference, and defiance of court authority is now in prosecutorial hands. As well. That does not mean new charges are imminent, but it does mean that judicially examined evidence is now part of an active criminal assessment. Within the federal system, referrals like this are consequential. They refine the scope of inquiry. They can significantly accelerate timelines. What makes this moment especially unstable is that two tracks are now moving simultaneously. Congressional action and criminal investigation are not opposing route. They can proceed in parallel. And when that occurs, political accountability and legal accountability begin to reinforce one another instead of unfolding independently. That convergence is historically uncommon. Institutions typically avoid simultaneous escalation. They alternate. They defer to one another. Tonight, that restraint has been discarded. Within minutes of the referral becoming public, the former president issued a response across his own platforms. The message was immediate, forceful, openly resistant. The court's authority was rejected outright. The referral was depicted as persecution rather than procedure. The judge was labeled as illegitimate, the courts as compromised, Congress as complicit. Legal analysts are already noting the irony. The response itself mirrors precisely the behavior the filing cautions about. Each additional statement now becomes part of the official record that Congress and prosecutors must assess as this continues to develop. Once a court has formally cautioned against specific conduct, continued public attacks can transition from protected speech into substantive evidence. The rhetoric is no longer simply politic. It's documentation. Law enforcement agencies are responding with clear seriousness tonight. Increased security preparations are underway around federal buildings across Washington. Officials are describing this as precaution rather than panic. But the institutional memory of past periods when political rhetoric intensified into physical confrontation is recent. It is embedded in every agency responsible for safeguarding democratic institutions. They are not reacting to what has already occurred. They are preparing for what might occur. Security briefings are being updated in real time. Congressional schedules are being modified. Threat assessments that were hypothetical 48 hours ago are now active. Beyond American borders, the reaction is already moving through diplomatic backchannels. Allies are quietly asking about continuity and stability. They want to know whether the United States can continue functioning as a dependable partner while managing this degree of internal pressure. Adversaries are observing even more closely, not for spectacle, but for weakness. Periods of domestic crisis are always studied abroad for strategic opportunities. The temptation to test limits, to probe vulnerabilities, rises precisely when a nation appears distracted. America's capacity to project unity has never been solely a domestic issue. Tonight, that unity is being directly tested on a global stage. For most Americans, this is the moment when constitutional theory turns personal. People aren't discussing legal procedure over dinner tonight. They're noticing increased security on their commute. They're seeing contradictory statements from leaders. They're sensing that events are moving faster than anyone can fully clarify. Financial markets respond to uncertainty long before results are certain. Companies delay decisions. Investors adjust positions. The ripple effects of instability move through retirement accounts and mortgage rates and job security in ways that affect everyone. Trust already weakened after years of upheaval becomes more difficult to rebuild with each escalation. Institutions rely not only on authority but on public confidence that disputes will be settled through process rather than force. That confidence is being examined right now in real time with no assured outcome. What is most remarkable about this moment is the pace at which everything is tightening. In most historical crises, events develop over months. There's time for narratives to form, for positions to solidify, for the public to process what's occurring before the next development emerges. Not here. Hours matter now. Statements made late tonight will influence decisions tomorrow morning. Decisions made tomorrow could prompt reactions before the weekend conclude. The speed itself is unsettling. Congress can activate fast-track provisions that compress timelines significantly. If leadership initiates those procedures, a full House vote could happen within days rather than weeks. That's not conjecture. That's the direct discussion happening right now behind closed doors. Speed is being characterized not as recklessness, but as containment. Act before outside pressure can distort the process. Act before demonstrations can be coordinated. Act before the situation spirals further beyond institutional oversight. Beneath all the visible developments, there's a more concerning conversation occurring quietly within policy circles tonight. When officials begin privately reviewing emergency constitutional provisions, when they start outlining scenarios that were once dismissed as academic discussions, it signals something important about institutional confidence. These discussions don't mean extraordinary measures will be implemented, but they reveal perspective. They expose how serious leaders believe the situation has become when the cameras are off and the prepared statements are put aside. The fact that these conversations are occurring at all tells you something about where we stand. As of this moment, shortly after nightfall on January 13, 2026, no final decision has been reached. No vote has been taken. No judgment has been issued. But the machinery is clearly in motion. A federal judge has declared the boundaries of judicial authority. Congress is preparing to respond. Prosecutors are continuing their efforts. Political alliances are straining under historic pressure. Public trust is being challenged in real time. And at the center of it all, a former president is openly resisting the institutions that have governed this country since its founding. This is not about speculation anymore. This is not about distant theoretical consequences. The next chapter will not extend across months. It will unfold over days, perhaps hours. Decisions are approaching. They are visible, and they are irreversible once finalized. Here's what I need from you right now. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell because I will be updating this coverage as developments progress, and they will progress quickly. Leave a comment below and tell me what you're thinking. What are you observing in your community? What questions do you have? I read everything. Share this video with someone who needs to understand what's unfolding. Text it to your family. Post it on social media. The more people who are informed, the better prepared we all are to navigate what comes next. What happens in the coming days will not determine only the fate of one individual. It will test the strength of American institutions when pressured from multiple directions simultaneously. It will reveal whether the constitutional framework that has endured civil war, economic collapse, and global conflict can endure this moment. It will establish precedents that will influence this country for generations. This is not going to quietly disappear. This is the beginning. Stay with me. More coverage coming. This story is developing hour by hour. Don't miss what happens.